The impossible solution. The holographic interface sparked to life again, projecting a three-dimensional image of the spatial anomaly that had already consumed 2 inhabited moons and was rapidly expanding toward 3 densely populated systems. Pulsing darkness with lightning-like tendrils of energy that seemed to bend both light and matter, the anomaly defied all scientific understanding across the 17 species of the Galactic Alliance. Senior research specialist Eliza Chen stared at the projection, her dark eyes tracking the patterns within patterns that none of her colleagues could see. Being the only human in the Tarkin Research Institute had its advantages. Chief among them was that nobody understood how her mind worked, which meant nobody questioned her methods. This was both blessing and curse. "The simulation has failed again," announced Director Vaxler, her feathered crest flattening against her elongated skull, a sign of deep distress among the Kelthari. 27 different containment strategies, all theoretically sound, all catastrophic failures. Around the circular chamber, the assembled specialists, the brightest scientific minds from across the Alliance, clicked, hummed, and sighed in their various biological ways of expressing frustration. The anomaly had appeared 3 solar cycles ago, after a Mech-Toren experimental quantum drive had malfunctioned during a routine test. What should have been a simple engineering failure had somehow torn open the fabric of spacetime itself. Eliza raised her hand, an oddly human gesture that still felt foreign to her colleagues even after 3 years of working together. "Director, I'd like permission to try something unorthodox." The room fell silent. The Kelthari director's compound eyes narrowed, focusing all 4 pupils on Eliza. "Specialist Chen, we've exhausted all conventional approaches. What do you propose?" Eliza took a deep breath. "I want to use the neural interface directly. No simulations, no models. Just me and the raw data." The reaction was immediate. Chief Theorist Grelzen, a bulbous Volox whose species had evolved mathematics before language, rippled his skin in alarm, their equivalent of shouting. "Impossible. The human brain cannot process the 11-dimensional matrices. Your neural architecture would collapse. Even our most advanced synthetic minds require filtered interfaces." "With respect," Eliza countered, "that's because your synthetic minds are modeled after non-human cognitive patterns. The human brain processes information differently." "Differently doesn't mean capable of the impossible," argued Teln, the spindly Arimid whose 6 limbs manipulated multiple holographic interfaces simultaneously. Eliza smiled slightly. "Humanity's entire history has been about doing the impossible. It's kind of our thing." Director Vaxler tapped her clawed fingers against the smooth surface of the command console. The anomaly was expanding exponentially. At current rates, it would engulf the Parthelian system within 14 standard days, killing billions. "What exactly do you hope to accomplish with direct neural access?" the director asked. "I believe I can see patterns in the anomaly's behavior that our computers aren't recognizing," Eliza explained, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Humans excel at finding connections where logical systems see only chaos." The Volox scientist made a dismissive bubbling sound. "That's just human mysticism disguised as methodology. Yet your 17 species with your superior technologies called us into the Alliance after witnessing what we accomplished on Mars and Europa with our primitive technology." Eliza shot back. "Something about our minds works differently. Let me use that difference." The room fell silent again, longer this time. The anomaly's hologram continued its silent, menacing pulse at the center of the chamber. "The risks to yourself?" the director finally asked. Eliza shrugged. "Significant, but we're out of options, and we're out of time." After a moment that stretched uncomfortably long, Director Vaxler nodded her feathered head. "Proceed, Specialist Chen. But I want a full medical team standing by." The neural interface chamber was rarely used these days. Most species preferred the safety of filtered interfaces and simulations. Direct neural connections had fallen out of favor centuries ago, deemed unnecessarily risky and inefficient. As the medical team attached the delicate filaments to her scalp, Eliza tried to quiet her racing heart. She had studied the theory extensively, but theory and practice were different beasts. The hair-thin neural filaments would create a direct pathway between her mind and the Institute's quantum computers, allowing her to perceive the raw data from the anomaly studies. "Final safety check complete," announced the Merite physician, his translucent fingers withdrawing from the control panel. "Though I must register my formal protest at this procedure. Human neural architecture is not designed for this level of information transfer." "Noted," Eliza said, settling back in the reclined chair. "Initiate the connection." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world exploded into colors and sensations that had no names in any human language. Eliza felt herself falling, drowning, flying all at once. Her consciousness expanded beyond her body, beyond the room, beyond anything she had ever experienced. Data rushed through her mind like whitewater rapids, threatening to sweep away her sense of self. Mathematical equations, quantum fluctuations, spatial coordinates all became tangible things she could touch, taste, smell. Then she saw it. Not with her eyes, but with some deeper perception. The anomaly was not random chaos as the computers had labeled it. There was a pattern, a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. No, more like breathing. The anomaly was expanding and contracting in minute ways that followed a distinct pattern. In that moment of clarity, Eliza understood something that none of the Alliance scientists had considered. The anomaly wasn't just a tear in space-time. It was behaving like a living entity. And if it was alive in some sense, it could be communicated with. With tremendous effort, she focused her thoughts, attempting to form a message within the data stream. Not words, but patterns, mathematical symmetries that echoed the anomaly's own rhythm. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The anomaly's pattern shifted, acknowledging her presence. It was aware. It was curious. Pain lanced through Eliza's head as the neural interface struggled to contain the exchange. She heard alarms blaring distantly, felt hands on her body trying to disengage the connection. But she was close, so close to understanding. With one final push of will, Eliza sent another pattern, one that conveyed a simple message: coexistence rather than destruction. The response came in a flood of information that nearly shattered her consciousness. When she awoke in the medical bay 3 hours later, Director Vaxler and the entire research team were gathered around her bed, their expressions a mixture of concern and awe. "It's not destroying space," Eliza croaked, her throat dry. "It's trying to build something, but it doesn't understand our reality." "What are you saying?" the director asked. Eliza struggled to sit up. "The anomaly isn't a mindless disaster. It's a form of intelligence from another dimensional plane. The quantum drive accident created a bridge, and it's trying to establish itself here, not realizing it's destroying our space in the process." The scientists exchanged glances of disbelief. "That's not possible," Chief Theorist Grelson said, but with less conviction than before. "Show them," Eliza said, pointing weakly to the data terminal beside her bed. The physician reluctantly activated the screen, displaying the information captured during Eliza's neural interface session. The room fell silent as patterns emerged, clear, unmistakable patterns of communication. "I know how to stop it," Eliza said quietly. "But we don't have to destroy it. We can communicate with it, establish boundaries. Teach it how to exist alongside us without causing harm." She managed a small smile. "It's what humans do best, finding ways to talk to things that shouldn't be able to understand us." The director's feathered crest rose in surprise. "You truly believe you can negotiate with a spatial anomaly?" "It's not just an anomaly," Eliza insisted. "It's a being. Different from us in almost every way, but alive nonetheless. And every living thing wants to survive." "Even if you're right," Telm the Orimid interjected, "the Alliance Council will never approve such an approach. They've already prepared a quantum resonance bomb to collapse the anomaly." Eliza's heart sank. Politics. It always came down to politics. Then we need to prove it will work before they can deploy that bomb. How long do we have? The council meets in 3 days, Director Vaxler said. If you can demonstrate a viable alternative by then. I'll need the neural interface again, Eliza said firmly. And I'll need help building a translation matrix based on the patterns I discovered. The room was quiet for a long moment before Chief Theorist Gralzen's skin rippled, and what Eliza had learned was an expression of reluctant agreement. What you're proposing defies all established science, he said. But then again, so does the anomaly itself. His bulbous eyes fixed on Eliza. I will help construct your translation matrix, human. Not because I believe it will work, but because I am curious to see what impossibility you will attempt next. Eliza smiled. In her experience, curiosity was often the first step toward acceptance. And right now, she needed all the acceptance she could get, because what she hadn't told them was that the anomaly being had shown her something else during their brief connection. A glimpse of its home dimension, a place of such beauty and complexity that it had brought tears to her eyes. 2 worlds were at stake now, and somehow she had to save them both. The human element. The Alliance Council chamber was an architectural marvel, designed to accommodate representatives of all 17 member species in an environment where none felt disadvantaged. Temperature, gravity, and atmospheric composition shifted subtly throughout the vast circular space, creating microclimates where each delegate could function optimally. Eliza Chen stood at the center of it all, uncomfortably aware that she was the only human in a room of over 200 alien dignitaries. The neural interface session had left her with lingering headaches and occasional visual distortions, but she had insisted on presenting her findings personally. This was too important to delegate. Specialist Chen, began High Counselor Xathmore, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns that conveyed skepticism. You are asking this council to abandon a proven containment strategy in favor of talking to the spatial anomaly. Put that way, it did sound absurd. Eliza squared her shoulders. With respect, High Counselor, the quantum resonance bomb is not a proven strategy. It's a theoretical solution that our simulations suggest has a 62% chance of success. And even if it works, it will destroy something unique and irreplaceable. An acceptable loss, rumbled Counselor Drav, the reptilian Gorlath representative whose species had lost a colony to the anomaly. This entity, if it even is one, has already caused billions in damage and claimed over 20,000 lives. Eliza activated the holographic display she had prepared, showing the translation matrix she and Chief Theorist Gralzen had constructed over the past 2 days. The entity is not malevolent, she explained. It's exploring, trying to adapt to our dimension. Its natural state of existence is fundamentally different from ours. When it extends into our space, the physics of our reality are disrupted, but not deliberately. The insectoid Jicree delegate vibrated her wing casings in the equivalent of an impatient sigh. Intent is irrelevant when the result is destruction, human. Your species has not faced extinction-level threats as many of ours have. Perhaps this colors your judgment. Eliza bit back a sharp retort. This wasn't the time for a history lesson on humanity's many brushes with self-annihilation. What I'm proposing, she continued steadily, is that we use the translation matrix to establish clear boundaries. We show the entity how to exist partially in our dimension without causing harm. We've already achieved rudimentary communication. With the resources of the Alliance, we can refine this approach. High Counselor Xathmore's crystalline body dimmed slightly, a sign of deliberation among his kind. Your translation matrix is based on a single neural interface session that nearly killed you, he noted. How do you propose to continue communication without similar risk? This was the question Eliza had been dreading. I need to interface again, but with the matrix in place, the information flow will be more structured. The risk is significantly reduced. Unacceptable, stated the Merite delegate immediately. We will not sacrifice sentient life, even voluntarily. The alternative is potentially sacrificing an entire form of existence we barely understand, Eliza countered. And if the quantum bomb fails, we lose everything anyway. Director Vaxler, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. The Council should know that Specialist Chen has already made significant progress. The anomaly has reduced its expansion rate by 27% since initial contact. We believe it is responding to the communication attempts. A murmur ran through the chamber as delegates conferred with their advisors. Eliza took the moment to collect herself, fighting back another wave of disorientation, an aftereffect of the neural interface. Time is critical, she pressed. The anomaly is still expanding, just more slowly. I need authorization to proceed with the full communication protocol immediately. And if your approach fails, asked Counselor Draff. Then you can still deploy the quantum bomb, Eliza said. But you'll have lost nothing by letting me try. After what felt like an eternity of deliberation, High Counselor Sathmore's body brightened to full luminance. You have 12 hours, Specialist Chen. If your communication protocol does not definitively halt the anomaly's expansion by then, we will proceed with the resonance bomb deployment. 12 hours. It wasn't enough time, but it would have to do. The neural interface chamber had been modified according to Eliza's specifications. Chief theorist Gralzen had worked tirelessly to integrate the translation matrix with the system, creating buffers and filters that would hopefully protect Eliza's mind from the overwhelming data flood. I still maintain this is inadvisable, the Volok scientist said as he made final adjustments. The matrix is untested. Everything about this situation is untested, Eliza replied, settling into the chair as the medical team attached the neural filaments. But I've seen inside its mind, Gralzen. It's beautiful there, like nothing in our universe. It deserves a chance to exist. The Volok's skin rippled in complex patterns. Your species has an irrational attachment to the concept of beauty. Maybe that's our contribution to the Alliance, Eliza smiled, finding beauty where others see only danger. Before Gralzen could respond, Director Vaxler entered the chamber. The Council has remote monitors active. We're ready when you are, Specialist. Eliza took a deep breath. Initiate the sequence. This time, she was prepared for the initial shock as her consciousness expanded beyond normal perception. The translation matrix functioned like a lens, focusing the overwhelming data into comprehensible patterns. She could sense the anomaly entity immediately. It had been waiting, curious about the brief contact they had shared before. Using the matrix as a guide, Eliza projected a more complex message, an explanation of their different realities, how the entity's presence was affecting their space, and a proposal for coexistence. The response came in kaleidoscopic bursts of information that the matrix struggled to interpret. The entity was confused, trying to understand concepts that had no equivalent in its reality. Eliza pushed harder, focusing on simpler concepts: boundaries, limitation, controlled interaction. Alarms suddenly blared through the chamber. Through her semi-conscious state, Eliza heard panicked voices. The anomaly is accelerating again. Expansion rate increased by 86%. Pull her out now. Eliza mentally shouted no, with such force that everyone in the room flinched, though she hadn't spoken aloud. Through the matrix, she could sense the entity's distress. It had misinterpreted her message, seeing it as rejection rather than an offer of limited coexistence. With desperate intensity, Eliza projected a new message, not through the careful structures of the matrix, but directly, raw emotion and imagery. She showed the entity Earth, Mars, Europa, places where humans had learned to adapt and coexist with harsh environments. She showed the 17 species of the Alliance, each evolved for different worlds yet finding ways to work together. Most importantly, she showed the entity what humans called imagination, the ability to envision things that didn't exist and then bring them into reality. This concept, so fundamental to human consciousness, was utterly foreign to the entity, whose existence was based on direct perception of its native dimension. Understanding bloomed like a flower opening. The entity grasped what Eliza was trying to convey. Not limitation, but transformation. Not rejection, but adaptation. In the physical world, the monitors showed the anomaly's behavior changing dramatically. The violent energy tendrils began to withdraw, condensing into a more stable, controlled formation. The expansion stopped. When Eliza finally emerged from the interface, exhausted but triumphant, Director Vaxler was staring at the readings in disbelief. "It's containing itself," the director said. "How?" "I showed it a different way to exist," Eliza explained weakly. "It's learning to imagine, to conceptualize its presence here in a way that doesn't disrupt our physics." Chief Theorist Grausen monitored the incoming data with all sensory appendages fully extended. "Fascinating. It's creating a self-contained pocket of altered space-time, a bubble where its dimensional properties can exist without affecting our reality." "A compromise," Eliza nodded. "It gets to experience our dimension, and we get to keep our physics intact." The next few hours were a blur of activity as the anomaly stabilized further. The Alliance Council, witnessing the unprecedented success, voted unanimously to abort the quantum bomb deployment. Instead, they authorized the establishment of a permanent research station to study and communicate with the entity, which they formally designated as the first extradimensional intelligence. 3 months later, Eliza stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching the swirling, now beautiful patterns of the entity, nicknamed Aurora by the human scientists who had arrived to join the research team. "I still don't understand how you knew it would work," said Director Vaxler, who had personally requested to lead the research station. "Your method defied all scientific models." Eliza smiled. "That's because you were all thinking about it scientifically. I approached it humanly." "Explain." "The Alliance species all evolved with highly specialized cognitive processes. Keltheri excel at multidimensional mathematics. Volox can perceive quantum states directly. Arimid can process multiple complex tasks simultaneously. But humans," she paused, considering how to explain. "Humans are generalists. We're not the best at anything, but we can do almost everything. We make cognitive leaps that make no logical sense but somehow work. We anthropomorphize. We see faces in clouds and personalities in storms. We tell stories about things that never happened and never could happen. We imagine." She gestured toward Aurora, whose patterns seemed to pulse in greeting as she approached the viewport. "That's what I gave to Aurora, the concept of imagination. The ability to conceive of itself differently than it actually was. No other species could have done that, because no other species thinks quite like we do." Director Vaxler's feathered crest rose in what Eliza now recognized as profound respect. "When your species joined the Alliance, many questioned what humans could possibly contribute. Your technology was primitive, your physical capabilities unremarkable. Even your scientific understanding was centuries behind most member species." The director turned to face Eliza fully. "I believe we have our answer now. You've demonstrated the most valuable contribution of all, a wholly different way of thinking." Eliza nodded, watching as Aurora shifted into a new pattern that the research team had come to associate with communication. The translation was still imperfect, but improving daily. "We're adapting to each other," she said softly. "That's what humans do best. We adapt, we find connections, we build bridges between things that should never be able to touch." In the space beyond the viewport, Aurora's swirling energies formed a pattern that looked remarkably like a human hand reaching outward, a gesture it had learned from observing the station's crew. Not perfect, not exact, but recognizable. An impossible connection made possible. A human specialty. The laser reached out her own hand in response, smiling as Aurora mirrored the gesture across the void. Two entirely different forms of existence, learning to communicate across an infinite divide. Maybe that was humanity's true gift to the universe, not technology or strength or even intelligence, but the relentless, irrational belief that gaps could be bridged, differences reconciled, and the impossible made possible, one human at a time.